Alright, hello guys, my name is Neo for those who don't know. I'm an eternity tank player, and last season, 7.5, I did a tier list meta-analysis of the heroes in the state of the game. And we've since had a new update, a new hero, and a huge shake-up to the meta. Mostly stemming from that hero release rather than, regular changes that happen in the patch notes. And today I decided to create another tier list, another analysis. The format is going to be a little bit different than last time, both of the tier list and the video. Firstly, I'm going to start by explaining what the meta means, what the shift is that happened. Then I'm going to explain the tier list and the changes to the tier list and how it's going to be slightly different to the formatting. And then we're going to go through each and every single hero, so not that different than last time. So first of all, let's begin with a discussion of the meta, what it means, how a tier list or analysis should be looked at, and what the big change was for this season. So meta, the term meta, it came from an abbreviation that means most effective tactics available. Does that mean that those are the only effective tactics, the only possible tactics, the only viable tactics? No, they're just the most effective. That means if everything is played optimally, at the highest level, at the highest potential of the characters and the comps, this is going to be the most effective thing, right? Does that mean it's the only viable thing? Obviously not. Does that mean you should be going into your ranked games looking at this tier list, only picking the characters in the top 2 tiers and nothing else? Obviously not. There's niches, there's spots for every character, there's counterplay, and it's a lot more layered, like any discussion. How the meta has changed, well, last season we had Black Cat release. Prior to her, White Fox. Both of those characters are great dive enablers, which shifted the meta a lot into dive focus, right? Both of those characters enabling dive as much as they do, completely shifted the meta from this poke cycle, right? Along with the huge nerfs to the old cycles, which we will talk a little bit more about now. Along with those changes, these characters that are dive focused, whose engagements are much quicker, they don't require ultimate cycles, getting picks and neutral fights became a lot more often. So the meta shifted from like a poke slop, triple support, standing at a distance, farming support ults, and then whoever uses their ults better came up top. The meta shifted to a more dive focused, more neutral focused fights. Last season, or this season rather, we got a new hero, Devil Dinosaur, and he completely shook up the meta. Why? Well, he's a big hero. He has a huge hitbox, a lot of ways to mitigate damage, and he is a brawl hero. Naturally, the meta shifts in his favor because he counters and shuts down a lot of tanks. This means there is slightly of a meta shift happening, where you have the usual dive, right, doing their own thing when Black Cat is open. But you also now have Devil Dinosaur stuff, where you kind of have to match the hero. You kind of need to play around him because he has such a huge health bar. He takes so much damage, which means those cycles, right, that got slowed down by the changes are now back in play. So the better supports are going to be winning. Triple support is back, much higher, which also fits into that dive slop meta, which means the cycles are different, the fights are different, everything is slightly different because of this character. Naturally, that means there was a shift, right? So there's multiple ways that the meta can now be defined based off of the bans. For example, if Black Hat is banned and Daredevil is banned, those two characters are your core divers. That means dive as a comp is going to be less effective than when those characters are open, which means poke becomes more effective. Similarly, if Devil Dinosaur is open, you kind of have to match him on the tank line. So you kind of are forced in this brawl meta because dive is going to be less able to do what they do. And if, let's say, Devil Dinosaur is open, Black Cat and Daredevil are banned, it becomes more of a brawl stall meta with a poke instance to it. So stuff like Rush is not as strong as possible, as before, sorry. It's more about pokes, more about old cycles and stuff like that. So these changes are going to be a little bit harder to showcase on a regular tier list where you just plop the strength of a character, because some characters are stronger into Dinosaur but weaker into the dive. Some characters are the opposite. Some characters are not good into either, so they're going to be like not really doing well in this meta. So those are the things we're gonna be discussing throughout the tier list itself, and as I rank all the characters and explain their spots in the meta. So it's a little bit of a discussion on the meta itself, what it means, and how you should be looking at this tier list. So it's going to be layered, it's going to be multifunctioning, because what is banned is going to drive how good a character is. But the goal of it is to showcase when it's played in its proper place in this multi-meta state, how strong is it going to be. With this, the tier list structure is going to be a little bit changed. I'm going to go through the tiers, explain what each of the tiers means, and we're going to start ranking the characters. The highest tier used to be best in slot. This is how I've seen a lot of people use the term, which I don't think it fits as well. Mostly because, what does it mean, best in slot? It means these are the characters you want in your slots. However, depending on the bans, maybe those characters are no longer best in slot, but they are still defining and the strongest character in the meta. For example, Black Cat is the best character in slot, but if she's banned, what is the next best thing, right? Depends what you're going to be running, what the other bans are, and stuff like that. So I decided to rebrand that tier into meta defining. These are the characters that define the meta. When they're open and when they're banned, the game is going to be played differently. It's going to be shifting around these characters. Next up, we have pick and ban. This is where your majority of your comps are going to be consisting of, and depending on the number of bans, depending on how the ban phase goes, whether it be MRC, Ignite, actual ranked competitive games, it's going to shift around these characters. And obviously, they're going to be like your best picks, right? Next up, we have something that is strong in the meta. These are not the strongest characters, but they still work well. The meta still suits them. They're still going to be thriving in their own specific spots. You can most of the time just pick any of these characters and do really well with them in the meta. Next up, we have mediocre. Obviously, it's the next tier below that. Similar reasoning, similar explanation. They're still good. They're still viable. They're still going to do their job. And you can pick them almost all the time. Less so than the strong characters. We have a couple of really good examples for this, and we're going to be discussing them as we go. After that, we have niche. This means these characters do have a spot in the meta. They're not countered by the meta. They're not completely out of the meta. However, their use cases are much, much more limited than something that is above them. We also have really good characters that are going to be fitting in these roles as well. Next up, we have something called this doesn't suit the meta. Right? Last time, this was called OTP rank, basically meaning if you are a god and if you only play this character, you can reach the highest ranks, right? Obviously, that is going to depend both on you as a player and the character and how it fits the meta. Some of the characters are just not going to suit this meta and this cycle of picks and heroes, so they're just not that good into what is currently being played. A good way to showcase that is, for example, a couple of seasons ago, we had a full-on poke slop meta, meaning Phoenix, Hela, Namor, stuff like that, range DPS, which meant that something like a Thing would not really suit that meta, right? The character itself isn't bad. It has a good amount of strengths, a good amount of use cases. However, the meta just does not suit the character at all, meaning he's not good for the meta. Is the character bad? No, it just doesn't suit the meta. It needs some help or it needs the meta to shift. And finally, we have characters that I just do not pick. This is the type of character that just don't fit. Even if the meta favored them, they would still not be good in that meta. Characters that have clear weaknesses in their kit, clear weaknesses in their playstyle, that just don't fit anything realistically. Something like your Black Widow, Squirrel Girl, Hawkeye, and stuff like that. And without further ado, let's begin discussing the tier list. Starting off, I'm going to be putting tanks, supports, and then DPS. They're going to be ranked and compared to each other rather than to other characters inside of that tier. For example, something like Gambit is a much higher priority than something like Captain America, but I might put them in the same tier I might put Captain America first because I'm doing tanks first. It's much more logical for me to compare tanks to tanks, supports to supports, DPS to DPS, than compare each role to each other because they fill different things, they enable different things, they work differently. And finally, they're going to be ranked by strength, not that much, from left to right. What is more so important is what I'm saying about the characters rather than their actual physical placement on the x-axis. So let's start with Devil Dinosaur. Like I said, this character is completely meta-defining. Why? He has a lot of sustain, and he is the healthiest character in the game. Something like a Groot is immobile. He's a big character, but his main survivability comes from his walls, especially his ironclad wall, and supports healing. Devil Dinosaur takes that and cranks it up a notch. He has, I believe, either the same or more health than Groot. He has a passive that gives him continuous overhealth based on the percentage of HP of the enemies he is hitting. So, for example, not based on that, the bleeding passive does that, and then the damage that he does by bleeding is going to be converted into overhealth. This obviously means that the higher HP the target you're hitting, the more overhealth you're going to get, which means he's incentivized to hit tanks, which means brawl meta. He's also not a long range character. The only ability that he has that is long range is his beam, which doesn't do that much damage, but it still procs that bleeding, and it does pierce through targets. So when people are grouped inside of a brawl situation, he's going to be getting a lot more overhealth and sustaining longer. Additionally, his bite ability, his F key, is going to give him even more of that overhealth, and he has a 450 HP shield around him. So he's also a shield tank, technically, which also slows people inside him. So he's perfectly built for brawl. But what kind of takes him over the top is the fact that he cannot be moved completely. He also takes reduced damage from crits, despite being a huge target and people just hitting his head nonstop. So the time to kill him isn't actually as high as something like Groot. If you're focusing the Groot with the same amount of damage, you're going to kill Groot much quicker. So Dino can sustain in those fights longer, making it a lot more susceptible to prolonged fights and better for brawl, especially if he's getting pocketed really well, which we're going to talk about during supports, because that also shifts the support lineups a little bit from the previous season. Naturally, these things about Devil Dinosaur are going to make him perfect for that brawling. On top of that, I forgot to mention, is he has things passive, which means he cannot be displaced. This means that stuff like Thor, who's really good in brawl, can't actually fight him properly. Stuff like Rogue can't do anything to him. Stuff like Angela can't do anything for him. So he's a huge target that cannot be moved, which means displacement is bad into him, which means those characters are going to falter. And that is the biggest weakness of brawl, is the lack of mobility. Emma isn't that mobile. Groot isn't mobile at all. So like these things make him really, really good in brawl, because the weaknesses of brawl don't really exist for him. A lot of poke, well, he has a lot of overshields and a shield to himself and a lot of HP, and he can keep cycling it. Displacement, because he is immobile. A lot of crit damage, well, he takes reduced crit damage. So like all of these weaknesses are actually mitigating his kit, which makes him incredibly strong. He is basically pick or ban. If he is open, you gotta pick him. And if you look at Marvel's Rivals meta, I believe, he has a winning matchup against almost every single tank, which is incredible. And he has the highest win rate with the highest pick rate in the game. His pick ban rate is similar to like Prime Gambit, closing in on that 100% or like 90, 80%. And his win rate is also the highest in the game, almost 60, 70 in neutral matchups, meaning matchups that aren't Dino versus Dino. So like the character is just incredibly strong. Next up, another tank that defines the meta, in my opinion, would be Captain America. Is he best in slot? Well, obviously, when Dino isn't open, and let's say you're running dive, this is your best in slot tank. Why? Because Captain America has really good damage, great burst with his combos now that he got buffed. His ultimate is another support ultimate, which is always going to break support cycles. And it still gives you that extra ult charge when he ults. So basically, Captain America is not only another support ult, he is an ult battery for your team. Meaning, if the enemy team doesn't have Captain America and you do, not only do you have another support ult to break the complete cycle, you supercharge your current supports, meaning that ult cycle is coming even faster than theirs. So not only are you outcycling them by one whole ult, you're outcycling them on pacing on those three ults. So that's also really strong. Assuming we're in triple support or double support, same thing applies. On top of that, he is really hard to kill. He is super mobile. His dash actually works really well into Dino and into Emma, who we will talk about afterwards. He creates a lot of space. He does a lot of damage. He has good burst, and he has really good ultimate. That ultimate is basically what makes this character this strong. In dive, he just enables dive really good. And when Dino isn't in this brawl state, Captain America and dive is obviously going to be really good. So Captain America is really, really good. Next up, we have Rogue, and we're going to talk about Rogue twofold, right? The reason why is, usually there's a big issue about Rogue because she is a completely different character with her team up and without that team up, right? And so I decided to categorize her in two ways. One way with the team up and one way without. With the team up, I believe she is pick or ban. That means Gambit is in play and her team up is in play. That means she can do a lot of more damage, get a faster ult cycle, and like I mentioned with Captain America, break that ult cycle. So what does that mean? Well, what Rogue Team Up does, not only does it increase her damage, her burst potential, her kill potential, her ult potential, it increases her ult charge, which means that she is also getting that ultimate quicker. On top of the fact that Gambit's ult supercharges ultimates to also come up quicker. Her ultimate can stop the enemy supports from ulting, meaning you have a chance to build up a cycle if you miss one. For example, you use your Gambit ultimate, they use their Gambit ultimate, you win the fight. You use your support ult, they don't. So you win the fight, the next fight. After that, Rogue ults, giving your Gambit time to actually ult while you suck up the other support's ultimate. Or during other ultimates, for example, Gambit tries to combo with somebody, Rogue can shut down that combo. This is why the character is really powerful. However, without the team up, her damage is really, really low. Her ult cycle is really, really slow, meaning that the character cannot do anything. Her time to kill is incredibly slow. She needs to burn her full kit, which means she can't get out. In comparison to somebody like Captain America, who dives in, and his main damage output is actually just his... isn't tied to his escape. It's his primary fire and his shield throw. She needs to use her shift, her E, her right click bash. She basically needs to use all of her mobility abilities in order to do her full combo, right? And even with all of that, her time to kill is slower than something like a full combo from Cap or a full combo from Venom using those mobility abilities. Which makes her much harder to pick up without that team up. With the team up, she doesn't even need to burst full her entire kit. She can, for example, pop the team up, shift in, and use her E to basically kill somebody or kill multiple targets because of the AoE damage. Something that she also doesn't really have that much of when she is using without the team up. This means that she doesn't really suit the meta because the meta is both dive, which she cannot enable as well as something like a Venom, something like a Cab, so she's gonna get outpaced, or even like a Hulk. Meanwhile, characters that are in the meta are Emma and Dinosaur. Both of those can grab her and basically burst her and instantly kill her. Additionally, all of her mobility abilities that do have a little bit of CC on them don't work on the Devil Dinosaur, which means she kind of gets stuck in the water. She gets out-damaged by them, she gets out-sustained by them, and she's much slower than them. The team-up shifts that in favor. I'd had her in best in slot last season before Devil Dinosaur. However, now, let's say, assuming the fact that Devil Dinosaur is open, and Gambit is open, Rogue is already not going to be as strong as before because Devil Dinosaur kind of hard counters her, right? So that's why she's going to drop down. But assuming Gambit open, Devil Dinosaur is banned, she comes back up with Captain America as like one of the best tank front lines, tank combos. Next up, we have Venom. Right next there with Captain America, he is the king of dive. The issue with him, though, is he doesn't have as strong of an ultimate, right? He does create as much space, he does as much damage, and he is as safe, and maybe even safer because of the amount of overhealth he gets now. However, the overall output of the ult fights is not really that in his favor. Most of the time, he needs to combo with something or somebody in order to actually get kills with his ultimate. Meanwhile, Captain America is a defensive ultimate, more so, or a full engage ultimate that just lets him press Q with his team and actually get the full value. Additionally, he doesn't really contribute to the ult cycle and stuff like that. He's good for cancels, right? He's really good for marking single targets. His engages and disengages are much easier than Captain America because his length of swing and slam are much, much greater. He's still an incredibly potent character, really strong, really good in the meta, and basically him and Cap are like what you're going to be picking when you're going for dive. A character that basically rose from the dead with this update is Emma. She is only pick worthy and like one of the best in slots when Dinosaur is open. She is one of the rare characters that I would say even arguably counters Devil Dinosaur, because her diamond form can actually stun him for long enough for your team to burst him, and the crystal that she pulls out of you, along with her primary fire beam that both got buffed, does a lot more damage than anything else from the tank lineup, which can really quickly burst Devil Dinosaur. Additionally, with her shield changes, she can block heals better, she can retrieve the shield quicker, and really good thing to note, her Luna team-up buff is actually pretty big. Not only is the radius much bigger, so you're fully LOSing the heals, it's also much easier to place in proper use cases. On top of all of that, Luna is a much more oppressive character this season than before, which we'll discuss, which makes that team up omnipresent. So you do have those two shields, both to block LOS, both to block heals, and to actually combo with your kick. Overall, Emma's damage is the main reason she's picked, and she is mostly this like pick-worthy, like really important character when Dino's open. She is still viable. However, if you're running dive, she is super mobile to move around the map, and she can just get easily outpaced by both Venom and Captain America. If she grabs them, though, they're most likely going to get shut down. But with heavy sustain and focus and triple support being as big as it is, even that is not that easy. She's good into those brawl tanks like your Groots, like your Stranges, like your Hulks, like your Things, Thors, and stuff like that, which is going to push those characters a little bit lower now because she is, again, stronger. She is definitely strong in this meta, and the big thing for her is if Dino's open, she's probably one of the best to couple with him. Next up is Groot. I was debating on putting Groot in this pick ban phase or strong, but I decided to go with the pick ban. Why? Groot enables so much, and the ability to wall off Devil Dinosaur is actually really, really strong, because once his jump is down, once his shield is down, he is actually a decent bit vulnerable. However, if Groot's Ironwood wall is down, he's just free eats for Devil Dinosaur. So it's kind of a chess match, and Groot kind of is required to play at distance, play his Ironwood wall much better. So those are some issues with him. Again, Emma is better in the meta, which means Groot is going to, taper down, because Emma, again, similar to Dino, he is immobile, he's a big target. If the Ironwood wall is down, she can just full combo him, do a lot of damage. So those are things that do, like, maybe put Groot down a peg. However, his ultimate is incredibly strong. There's a lot of situations where you can just like kill with him. Mantis is really strong. The team up is incredibly good. So use the team up. You have a lot more healing. Helps your backline. You can zone out heals in the dive meta, so you can focus on the tanks. Kind of flip the situation there while somebody's diving. They peel. You go on the tanks and you do damage on the tanks, basically countering the space created by the tanks going in on your backline, so that your heals are distracted, but you can block on the front line. So you're kind of buying that space back. Next up, we have Doctor Strange. And again, he is in a weird spot. He is this sort of brawl tank, right? That can fight Dino. However, he loses to Dino because of that displacement. He can brawl the Emma. Again, loses that. He can't really catch up to neither Venom nor Captain America, right? But he can play in this middle ground, middle zone, right? Where he can both be in the backline kinda and block the heals and block incoming projectiles. He can be on the front line. His ult is great for canceling out stuff like White Fox. He completely counters White Fox. Luna, when she's exiting her ultimate. Invisible Woman in her ultimate. He can fly up and deal with the Ultrons. Similar thing for Loki, whoever he copies. So he's really good into those supports. Similar thing for Gambit. If you catch out Gambit, he's 250. He's really, really easy to ult and kill once you do catch him. So he does have his niche moments, and his team up with Invisible Woman is still really strong. When somebody is diving, fighting, and wants to exit, if Stranger's there to peel, pull them back with the E, they're just going to be dying. However, Dinosaur and Emma with the double grab, really, really bad for Strange. He can't really work in those situations. Next up, we have Hulk, who, well, he has a similar thing right, with Strange. He is going to falter a little bit because both Dinosaur and Emma aren't ideal for him. He does actually work well with Dinosaur. And another thing where he does have some value is if the enemy Dinosaur is ulting, you can just stun him, exile him for a little bit, maybe even Hulk ult him, and completely neutralize his ultimate or neutralize his engagements. That exile is one of the strongest tools in the game. His bubble can counter so many ultimates. He is so survivable, which means he can stall point, he can buy time, he can peel, and engage whenever necessary. So if you're good at hitting that exile, the shields, he's going to be creating that value. Again, he doesn't fit the meta as well. Both Captain America and Venom are better at diving. Same with Rogue with TeamUp. But he can kind of do both. He can kind of peel, kind of pressure, kind of come back in forth, because his actual mobility isn't on a cooldown. It's on his jump, right? Or is on a cooldown, but a much shorter one. He is more susceptible to CC during that. However, he has a bubble on demand. So he does have a little bit of that tangle that works. He's maybe slightly weaker than last season, but he still fits it. It's not that big of a change. On the other hand, we have Magneto. He doesn't really fit in either of these scenarios, right? Because Dinosaur just destroys Magneto. He's incredibly mobile. The damage he does is insignificant, so he can pressure the Dinosaur. Emma, similar thing, right? If Emma is not grabbing you, Dino's grabbing you, so you're not really in a good spot. However, Magneto is always going to be a necessary evil. There's a lot of poke. Well, we got to go Magneto, right? So he is mediocre in the meta because it doesn't suit him. He's terrible in dive, terrible into dive. He doesn't really provide any peeling or any support on the dive. And he also isn't really that good into brawl. He's a pure poke tank, right? So he is going to drop down. However, if the game is more Phoenix-centered, you kind of need a Magneto. If the game has a Punisher, you need a Magneto. If the game has a Bucky, Magneto is really good. Even Elsa, he's really good. So there's slots where the character can work. Next up, the biggest fall from grace is tank pull. The character did kind of get gutted. The amount of damage he used to do was much, much higher. I did a video describing the patch notes changes and the amount of damage he actually lost. The time to kill is much slower. The amount of poke he does is much lower. However, he does still have those moments where he's actually really good. He can assist the dive on the backline because of his long range poke. The crit damage is good. The bubble is good. The Deadpool in your area, the E is really good. The ultimate can still create panic. It can still pressure the supports. However, you are not as survivable, right? So you do kind of have to match it with somebody else diving. But because the meta does suit that, he can work. If this meta was a lot more poke focused, he would not be as strong, purely because he cannot actually create that much space on his own, because the guns just do not create that much pressure. He's also not that bad into Dinosaur because his big head is right there and you can just keep continuously shooting at it. So he does have some spots in the meta. It's not ideal. He isn't as strong as he used to be. Obviously, the change is really big. The meta also isn't as favorable to him as before, but he is still really strong. I recently watched Navi versus Rad, and Trust Me by Navi was using the character to incredible success, much better than I would have expected. So the character is still viable, obviously. Next up, Thing. He is niche. Why? Well, Dinosaur destroys him. He cannot move Dinosaur, which means Dinosaur's huge body hitbox can just block Thing's dash. So like he is one of the rare characters that can completely grab and displace Thing. So you grab Thing, you pop your bubble, displace him, and just chomp on him. And while body blocking his shift, the Thing is just dead. So he is not getting into that. Obviously, Emma's in the meta. He's not getting into that. Groot's in the meta. He's not getting into that. Can he enable dive? No, not really. So he's kind of there in those really, really niche situations where the enemy team has a Magik, has a BP. You're going to be countering those specific characters, maybe countering a Hulk, maybe trying to appeal for that Venom or Cap engage, maybe Black Cat, but even that character is just like way too strong, so you're not even countering her that well. So he doesn't have it really that good. A character that kind of like loves this meta compared to any other meta is Peni. There's certain maps where Dinosaur can just barely like walk through a choke point without getting just peppered by mines, which is incredibly powerful for Peni to have. She has that like zone denial. 303 is viable on defense, meaning 3 tanks, 3 supports. Like imagine having Ultron, Mantis, Luna, and then having Dino, Emma, and Penny. Like, breaking that core is going to be insanely hard. So, like, the character does have her really good niche spots, and I would say this is the best meta where Penny is actually viable since probably double Rocket team up. Really good space for Penny to exist in here because she can deny these slow walkers. She can protect her supports with the overshield. She can use her ultimate as a pseudo support ultimate, kind of like Captain America. Give them a little bit of that overshield, slow people down, deny some space, maybe even go into supports and create some kills potential. But it's a really good stalling ult. I mean, really good. It's Penny's ultimate, but like it's good in this meta where you can stall some space and basically play for that long, prolonged brawl meta. Next up, we have Thor. I just don't think he suits the meta anymore. Devil Dinosaur, Emma, he just really bad into those two characters, and putting him here into any of those matchups, you're just playing at a disadvantage. His main thing is displacement of those poke tanks and brawling those characters, but like now he can't do it. He can't completely counter Hulk like he used to do before. They've removed that interaction. Emma being strong again means Thor is weaker again. His ultimate still suffers from the exact same issues, and there's even more shields in the game. He cannot outpace the Captain America or a Venom in the backline dive, neither on the attack or on the defense. He just doesn't have enough. He doesn't have enough health. He doesn't have enough firepower. His ultimate is really weak. He just doesn't really suit the meta. Previously, he was much stronger because the meta was dive focused, but you could ban out more of the dive, and his counters weren't as prevalent or as existent. He also could work really well into tank pool. He could mark the tank pool on off angles or any other poke characters, but Hela's weaker and stuff like that. So you're mainly marking the Phoenix on that off angle. Tank pool is weaker, so you're not marking him. The only like really good opportunity for Thor to exist is contesting a Luna Snow who is flanking. Thor can get up to Luna even through the stun, burn his overhealth, and just kill her. He also has the ability to kind of chase her down, more so than other characters because his actual burst is really strong. So she can't just like turn around and shoot and kill him the way she can do to Captain America or Hulk, right? So like that's his like main niche, but he just doesn't suit the meta overall. So like even for that scenario, you're probably better off like marking her with somebody else just for a little bit, or like a dive character or something like that. And finally, I would say the worst tank in the game that still does have her spots is Angela. She completely doesn't suit the meta. The character, like as I said, everything in Devil Dinosaur's kit counters her completely. He has a slow and a ground, which counters her dash. He's unmovable, so that counters her dash. He's a big hitbox, so he can just body block it. So you completely need to play around the tank. You cannot harass the tanks here. But if you are harassing anybody else, he's really quickly going to just like beam you down, grab you, shield you, and just get you killed. This is like the worst meta for her. She doesn't work well into any characters. She is a dive enabler, but there's way better characters to do it. She doesn't really work well into Groot with the Iron Wall. Doesn't work well into Emma because Emma can just grab and kill her. Doesn't work well into Rogue because Rogue can disable her. Hulk can grab her. Strange with the team up can E her. She's good into Magneto, good into tank pool, and that's about it. She is really weak, and the meta really doesn't suit her. That would be your tank lineup. I don't think there is a single tank you don't want to pick ever. If I would have to put some tanks there, it would probably be Thor or Angie. Thor, Angie, and Rogue, all of these characters, but I would say they can all work. You can all output good damage on them. You can all get kills on them. You can all create scenarios where you can get picks in fights. But I just wouldn't advise picking them in the meta. So next up, we have the support lineup. And obviously, the meta-defining support, he's been there since he released. It's Gambit. There's not much to continuously discuss about Gambit. His ultimate is the best win con in the game, combined with Starlord, Elsa ult, Groot ult even, Emma ult, and now the Dinosaur ult, Rogue ult, Daredevil ult, Punisher ult. Any ultimate you can think of, this character can just completely make them insanely strong and just outright win the fight for you. His neutral healing is good. He combos well with the new character as well. He does well into dive because he can survive, especially if you give him more supports. He has that double dash, decent self-sustain, and good ability to fight back. Obviously, he's going to lose the 1v1s against both Daredevil and Black Cat, more so Black Cat. But he is still strong. He's really still strong. Nothing is going to move this character down a peg until his ultimate gets addressed. And then you're going to need to buff his neutral, most likely. Because you have to contend him with something like Luna Snow, who is basically insanely broken right now. And there's two reasons why Luna Snow is insanely broken right now and went from the weakest support into the strongest support. One, the meta shifted, and two, they buffed her damage so insanely high, she does more primary attack damage if you hit your crits than Phoenix. That is insane. All right, the character does way too much damage, has loads of self-sustain, has obviously the strong support ultimate, which is surprisingly like the weakest part of her kit, right? The stun is incredibly long. She can kill any tank almost in a 1v1. She can take off angles really easily and really quickly because she's super mobile, more mobile than Phoenix, more mobile than Hela, less so in the terms of like burst mobility, but continuous mobility. And how does she fit the meta? Well, you have Devil Dinosaur, a huge target that requires a lot of healing. You put Luna Flake on him, you heal him, you get a lot of ult charge, and the biggest weakness of Luna ult, other than the fact that it's a circle that she has to move, you can't just it's not as wide as other support ultimates in terms of area coverage, is it builds up really slowly. So you kind of completely counteract that. And she's one of the rare characters that can keep Devil Dinosaur up in a 2-2-2 lineup rather than needing the 2-1-3 lineup with the triple support. How does she fit into dive? Well, she's like really susceptible to dive, you would tell me. Well, obviously, however, the fact that she can easily clap for 75 damage with a lot of healing across like a large amount of space is going to make this character incredibly good to supplement the dive. So, for example, let's say your Daredevil is diving, your Black Cat is diving, your Venom is diving. You take a little bit of an off angle with Luna, which you can easily do. You activate your clap. You clap, dealing 75 damage to anyone that they're diving while also healing them. You're sustaining the dive. You're doing a lot of damage. You can even do this down main, depending on domination maps and stuff like that. She does an incredible job at this. Better than, I would say, any other character, including White Fox. I think she does more damage and supplements dive even better than White Fox. Why? Because she doesn't need to really overcommit. White Fox needs to get up close, either by using her shift or walking in or positioning correctly, use her melee form, which is her biggest survival tool, in order to get a kill. So, like, they need to full commit to wipe somebody in order for White Fox to live and win the fight. Luna can just take an off angle and just clap. And does basically the same thing, and basically does it better because she does more damage and more healing. So Luna is insanely strong, and I don't think not picking this character is smart. I think avoiding her is the least thing you can do. Thinking that she is bad into dive is not that good because if she hits a stun on Black Cat, she is dead. If she hits a stun on Daredevil, he is dead. Spider-Man, don't let me even mention that character. So like she is incredibly strong. Like I was thinking about putting Luna in that pick ban phase last season. Now she is even higher in my opinion. Devil Dinosaur just like made her completely. The fact that she can enable him that much makes her completely better. And the amount of damage she does is just insane. You can see Luna's easily hit up 20k damage in a match. It's just incredible. Like I mentioned, White Fox is right there. She is by far the best anti-dive support in the game. Her melee form didn't get any changes, basically. If you're consistently hitting your shots, she is getting even better healing than before. Or the same healing before, but like if you're not hitting those shots, she's still going to get the same healing, even better healing. So the character's really strong there. Her only weakness is, again, the ultimate, but if you're double keying with a dive, that ultimate can still do really well. The only reason she's not in the meta defining slot, I would say, is because she doesn't really match that well into neither Emma nor Dino. Both of those characters can just grab her and just kill her in her ultimate, which is not good, just like completely annihilating a support ult. I'm going to put two characters here at the same tier. both for the same reason, and this is the best enablers for triple support. Your like ideal triple support lineup right now would probably be Luna, White Fox, and then either Mantis or Ultron, or like some of those variations. Both of these characters are really strong. Not only did the changes to Mantis's damage boost not break the character, they completely made her better for dive. So she enables dive even better. Naturally, the movement speed buff is crazy. Not only are you going to have a Daredevil running at you with a damage boost and a healing leaf on him, he's now even faster. A character that is known for his speed. Similarly, if you keep that damage boost and movement speed boost on your Black Cat, she's going to be in and out of those fights before you can know it because of her invisibility and her incredible mobility. So Mantis is really strong right now, and the buffs were great, honestly. For dive, really, really good buffs. I'm debating who I'm gonna put next in the levels here, but I would say support pool. I think this character is insanely slept on and has been insanely slept on for a couple of seasons now. But I feel like this season he is going to excel incredibly. If you run him in a triple support lineup, you are just not going to die with Devil Dinosaur. He is right there with White Fox, the most undiveable support. He can just fight you and just never die because of his E, the Deadpool in the area, especially if you upgrade it. It also provides damage boost, heals in the area, and the amount of overhealth you get from his ultimate ability once he hits the jackpot is insane. Like it's like you have like 400 HP on a squishy. It's just incredible. And the fact that you can not be in the area, walk into it, get the full health instantly rather than slowly like with Mantis is also a huge, huge boost. The character does require a little bit of coordination, so he's more suited for higher elo and pro play, but he is incredibly strong and incredibly slept on. I feel like if people put him more often in triple support, they're going to love this character. Like right now in high elo, I am loving getting this character. The more I get him, the more I enjoy him. He is just incredibly, incredibly strong. A character that I've seen fall out of favor a little bit now is Invisible Woman. I am not too sure why. I know that she isn't as good into dive. She does fall under pressure a lot easier than stuff like Luna, who can just kill you, White Fox, who can just fight you, or the triple support enable characters, right? But she's still really strong. Like don't get me wrong, the character is still incredibly strong. She has better, like she's one of the better characters to have good time to heal on the Dinosaur. But I feel like let me add in Loki here. I feel like Loki's buffs kind of negated her usability in that Dino comp. Loki has a lot of sustain now because they buffed his clone healing, right? So he can burst heal much better than Sue can, which kind of puts her lower on that totem pole. You know, her ultimate isn't also isn't one of the strongest ones. Dino can just ult grab her and take her out of her ultimate and just kill her, which makes her ultimate less viable. However, there's still situations where you do want to run her with dive to just like cage the supports and just like have a support ultimate fight on top of their enemy supports with your dive killing them, which is just going to be incredibly destructive. As you can see, the support lineup is incredibly strong this season. There's only 3 supports that are kind of bad, and they're really bad, I would say. I just realized I lost Jeffy here. There we go. So yeah, those are the issues currently with Susan Storm. She doesn't have enough burst healing for that Dinosaur. In triple support, you're with one Luna over her. She doesn't have really that good supplementation to that dive because she does work at a lower range and she doesn't have as much mobility, and her like continuous sustain is not that good. She's really real strong. Like the character is still incredibly strong. You can definitely pick her and just continuously win. I don't think her win rate is going to falter that much in high elo, but like maybe in lower elo where the dive and the Dino is open, she is going to get start like lowering up her win rate from last season. And let me not just like completely overlook Loki. He got a big buff with his clone healing. He has a good team up with Mantis and Groot. His lamps obviously are insanely strong. He's relatively decent into dive, especially in triple support. Giving him a Mantis and maybe an Ultron or like a Luna, stuff like that. He can like easily survive with the burst healing that they have. His damage isn't as strong, but it's still good enough to like weigh enough to dive. Using your lamps, using your teleport, all this can give you a lot of space. He isn't the greatest into it, but he is good into Dinosaur, which prompts him back up into the meta. Next up, Jeffrey the Landshark. Jeffrey is strong. However, the issue is he doesn't have a support ultimate for the most part, right? It's really hard to ult with Jeff without, getting your other support killed or not getting anybody and getting yourself killed. So it's really risky to use his ultimate, which is why high elo Jeffs barely even ult unless they know for certain they're countering something or getting some value out of it, So that's a big issue with Jeff. And obviously, his job is done better by other supports. Luna enables dive better now because of her insane damage. White Fox does it better. Triple support, he doesn't really fit there. But you can still see the character do a lot. He isn't bad by any means. He excels, obviously, in that triple support slot. You saw the Lions do really, really well with him in Ignite the other day. So, I think the character is really strong, really good. Another character I want to mention is Rocket. He is back. He was much weaker last season. The damage buffs are obviously incredible. He can help melt that dinosaur. The damage increase is really strong when you're running heavy poke. However, his issues are still the same. If the enemies have the time to shoot your beacon, it's just useless. His heals are relatively slow, so he isn't good to keep up the dino unless you're running triple. And that's kind of it with Rocket. He's decent in the meta. He's overall mediocre. That Resurrection, the Res Beacon, is really, really strong, especially in fights where you're expected to lose members. However, with how many flankers and divers are strong and potent, that Res Beacon is going to be dying really quickly. And he also, as I said, he doesn't have enough time to heal. Is relatively slow, so he doesn't have enough of an oomph to keep up that dinosaur, Running something like Cloak and Dagger and Rocket is the worst backline you can run because their time to heal on the dinosaur is so insanely slow. You're just going to be losing those fights continuously just because of your backline. Speaking of that, we do have Cloak and Dagger. And like I said, I don't think she suits the meta. She's bad into dive because once her bubble is down, she is the easiest character to kill. She doesn't have enough damage to make the dive back off. She doesn't have enough healing to keep up during the dive once her bubble is down, which can easily be baited because, Cloak and Dagger do that often, especially if Devil Dinosaur is in play. She uses that bubble on him because her primary fire doesn't heal anywhere near enough to keep him up, so she uses that bubble on the dinosaur, which means she doesn't have it for the anti-dive. You mark that, you dive her, she's going to fold over, and you're going to continuously keep losing the fights. And because, let's say, you're running exactly the same comp, but the enemy team has Luna Loki, and you have Rocket Cloak. Your Devil Dinosaur is going to have so much more sustain that your Emma Dino are just going to roll over that front line. And again, we have Adam Warlock. I think he's niche. I don't think he's bad by any means. In the scenarios where you do need some triple, but there's so many better triple support characters. His damage is completely outclassed by both Luna and Ultron, so there's no really real reason to pick him. His healing is not that good. His ultimate does have some use cases, but again, the character is just really, really niche. There's people who hit one above all with him, right? So he does have viability, but there's just he doesn't have carry potential. He doesn't have that much to turn the fight other than the ultimate is soulbound, and his base healing is just nowhere near good enough to counter that dive. Once that's down, it's just bad. If you don't have insane aim only legs, you're not gonna get value in this character, right? You need to hit those headshots, you need to hit those long range headshots. You need the damage, right? You need high and consistent damage output to get value in this character. Otherwise, there's just no point in picking him. And that would be our support lineup. As you can see, it's obviously quite top heavy. Why? Because there's 4 of the characters here who are primarily off supports, right? Fox, Ultron, Mantis, and even Healpool to an extent are off supports, which means they're running triple support. So you're using some variations of them. You're not going to pick all of them at the same time. But all these characters are super viable. If you pick them, you're going to have a great time. That's where you're going to be looking at for support lineups, right? You're going to pick your Luna almost every single game, Gambit whenever he's open, and then you're going to look, okay, do we need anti-dive? Yes, let me pick maybe the Fox, right? Do we need that consistent healing and overshields, and can I go fly? Yeah, pick the Ultron. Do I want to go for a bit more rush with the Mantis damage boost or heal pool damage boost? We're going to do that. And then your Susan Storm and Loki, if you're running the full brawl, prolonged fights, stationary situations, you're going to pick them with the Luna and another off support. Next up, DPS. Obviously, Black Cat. She's the best dive character in this game and by far the best character in the game. I would say she's better than Dinosaur, better than Gambit for the simple reason is she makes the game into a state where whoever has the better Black Cat is going to win. Whoever's Black Cat is going to clear the backline quicker is just going to outright win the game. She is that oppressive. Her ultimate is absolutely insane. She does so much damage with that ultimate, can continuously chain it, even past death, that is just completely broken. Her shop allows her to have invisibility to easily get out, grounding to like lock up targets, fucking vision, right? Like she has wall hacks, which is obviously broken. The reason why Daredevil cannot fall out of the meta ever because of that wall hacks ability. Her ultimate is insanely strong. Her burst skill is insanely strong, and during fights, she can just completely go immune, get her iframes, right? That is insane for a dive character who can just deal damage and take herself out of the game, just completely banish herself. That is just bonkers and absolutely broken. Which obviously makes this character insanely strong. If you watch Ignite, the stuff that Satam and Tanuki are doing this character is just insane. You're just watching pro players in triple support lineups just folding over to the pressure of this character. She's just insane. If she is open and you can pick her and you can play her, you need to play this character. Like, she is by far the strongest character. And like the main reason that dive is so prominent, right? Daredevil was strong for a while. However, this character completely broke dive. She does more damage, quicker damage, has more survivability in when she is diving, iframes, wall hacks, invisibility, grounding, and one of the best ultimates to have ever graced this game. She is just so bloated and so strong. I am baffled by the fact that they did not touch her at all in the patch notes. And I'm begging that in Season 8.5 we nerf anything about this character. Or everything. Like, she's just absolutely broken. It looks great, though. Next up, we have Phoenix. Also meta-defining. Why? Best poke in the game, by far. They decided, you know what? I feel like Phoenix, the strongest DPS since the game came out, aside from that couple like weeks where Elsa was broken and now with the Black Cat, this character has never left the meta, and they just buffed her for no reason. They took away a little bit of spark damage, but now with Dinosaur, you're hitting his head nonstop, so you're continuously getting that spark damage. So over the course of a match, you're actually getting way more damage of those sparks. And with the headshots damage being even stronger, and her ability to kill 275 much quicker now, she just made Hela useless. Like, if Phoenix is open and you're picking Hela, you're just trolling the game, even with the team up. Like, the team up is nowhere near as good as Phoenix alone, right? The character is absolutely bonkers, still counters Rocket ult, still has really good damage synergies with any other ultimate in the game, with Emma, with Groot, with Luna damage boost, with Gambit, with even the Rocket damage boost. Like, so many good combinations. This character has way too much damage. And if you're running poke, this is your best in slot character. And usually, if you're running full anchor dive, meaning you have one character diving, another character diving, and then your off tank diving, your main DPS, your off DPS diving, you have a main DPS shooting. Phoenix is going to be your best off DPS in those scenarios. She takes off angles like almost anybody. Her and Luna are like the best off angle DPS. And if you have a Luna with your Phoenix on an off angle, and you're diving, like, imagine how quickly your backline is going to explode. Like, let's say you send Captain America and Cat to dive. You put Black Cat and Phoenix on an off angle, and, like, doesn't matter where the rest of your team is. That backline is just getting destroyed instantly. And like, Luna keeps everybody up, does insane amounts of damage. Phoenix also hits one headshot, you're just exploding, right? I was debating on putting Daredevil in pick or ban or meta defining. However, I realized if Black Cat is banned, you need to pick him if you're running dive. He is just, that strong. The character basically is like the only thing that can kind of mark the Black Cat because of his own wall hacks, but you should be matching the character. Like, you should be matching Black Cat into Black Cat. But let's say you're in MRC or in Ignite and the enemy team banned Daredevil but saved Black Cat or some sort of scenario, you kind of have to pick him to like kind of mark her or stuff like that. But his ultimate is really good, especially in combos. He has really good burst, especially with the continuous Devil Chain combos. And if you're coordinating dive, the wall hacks are obviously still going to be useful. He doesn't need to set them up as Black Cat, even though Black Cats are obviously really, really easy to set up. And she gives it to her entire team. So it is just outright better, right? But he still has his burst damage combo. He's still the second best diver in the game by far. And again, like I said, if Phoenix is banned, you're running Daredevil. That's kind of how it is. Next up, I want to talk about Starlord, obviously. Starlord is insane. They just buffed him, gave him 10 more mag, which is basically what, like 25% more magazine, which is genuinely insane. His burst is much stronger now. I believe he can do like 650 damage with a full magazine if he crits everything, which is insane just from primary fire. Even with like hitting every single body shot is 325 damage. So he kills through healing if you're just good at tracking. He's also flank DPS, which means he has range and goes into the back line, so he can really work well with any sort of dive, whether it be Captain America, Venom, Cat, Daredevil. He's really good for all those scenarios, and obviously, best in slot DPS when Gambit is open. You use Gambit ult, you use Starlord ult, you're winning the fight. So, as you see every single time in Ignite, these are the characters you're seeing picked in terms of DPS. It's Black Cat, it's Daredevil, it's Phoenix, it's Starlord, and maybe Elsa. Those are your best in slot DPS, basically. You can even argue that Starlord's damage now makes him meta defining, but he doesn't really switch anything about the meta. He just fits insanely well into the meta, which is why I'm kind of putting him lower there, despite the fact that he can enable everything in the meta. He's just that strong. Next up, Elsa. Not much has changed about her, you know. Her survivability is lower. Her shift comes up much less because of the cooldown nerfs. She still has percentage-based damage, so she's like one of the best bow characters in the Devil Dinosaur, right? She's basically a ranged Wolverine. The weakness of Wolverine and Iron Fist is the fact they need to be up close with that Devil Dinosaur. Elsa can just continuously pop up damage, much easier to hit her regular primary fire into the headshots. She can charge her ult really quickly, and obviously, she's one of the rare characters that can displace him. So she can just, pop her ultimate, displace the tanks, and have a really good win con there. Nothing much has changed about Elsa. She didn't get touched. She's still insanely strong. The other characters are just stronger than her now because of the buffs and how better dive works now rather than just like the poke slot from before. But in that brawl with the Devil Dinosaur, she's really good anti-brawl. Next up, still Psylocke. People keep saying that this character is not that good. I just don't see it. I'm continuously seeing Psylocke in ranked perform incredibly well. Her ultimate is great for baiting out ultimates. Her burst damage with her regular primary fire is really strong. She is the second best flank hero. If Starlord is not available for whatever reason, bans or whatnot, if you can't play them, Psylocke is right there. There's no reason to not pick the character. Like, she does a lot of damage in her regular primary. She does require really good aim. She's insanely good into Ultron. She's great into Phoenix. She can contest these characters really well. Not the greatest into either Cat or Daredevil, but the poke can actually be really good. She's decent into Starlord, but probably loses that matchup in a 1v1. And because you can farm ult of this character, this character, this character, and this character, right? Groot, Emma, Venom, Dino, she can farm quickly her ultimates and like play around that old cycle on her ultimate, force her support ultimate early, or if the cycle is broken, you can just get your ultimate and get some picks. She's still really strong. There's nothing more to say about this character. If you're really good on her, you're still gonna get a lot of value, and she's probably Psylocke and Starlord are probably like the strongest characters to hyper carry in ranked. From what I've seen, because these Black Cat is usually banned, Phoenix is usually banned, and Daredevil is usually banned. Elsa isn't as good as hyper carrying because her main value comes from those ultimates, right? If you're really good mechanically, I think Starlord and Psylocke are going to be your best hyper carries for ranked. Next up, we're going to have Wolverine. Obviously, with Brawl being stronger, Wolverine is naturally going to be stronger because he can just melt those tanks. However, the amount of CC these tanks have and the fact that he cannot displace Devil Dinosaur is making him a little bit weaker. However, with the amount of HP they have, you build your ult really quickly, so that's a really good and really quick win con before support ults exist. You melt White Fox, you hard counter her ultimate. You can displace and kill Susan Storm in her ultimate really well. Obviously, great into Groot, great into Rogue, great into Venom when you grab him. Even really good into Cap. You can just shut him down. And obviously, Emma with her diamond form down, and Dinosaur just farm ult of him and just actually create a decent amount of pressure on him. He's overall good. He is kind of in a way countered, but like outclassed by Dinosaur himself, because Dinosaur can grab characters that Wolverine can't. And Dinosaur also does percent base damage with his bleed. It's nowhere near as much as Wolverine, but the displacement is stronger. So there's a little bit of a give and take there. So like for bursting and for but like also you can imagine these characters working really well together, because let's say Dinosaur brings the enemy Dinosaur into your backline, Wolverine catches him, right? Stuns him basically because of the leap grab, and just like melts him instantly. So like there is value there. Hulk and the jump pad track is always going to be good. The fastball special is a really strong team up, especially with Hulk now being decent in the meta, and can kind of counter the Venom and the Captain America on the dives. You can like peel better as well. Next up, Iron Fist. The buffs are big. The buffs are really big. The extra block means that basically he needs one more cycle of his primary fire to basically get his full block back, which is basically the main way he does his damage, the way he sustains, and he can brawl longer in the fights. Similarly, he is CC immune when he uses his block. So if he baits out Devil Dinosaur's bite or blocks it, he's going to be able to shred that character insanely fast, because after that, Dino doesn't really have that much mobility. So let's say enemy Dino grabs your Dino counter grabs, shields, and you're just Iron Fist, you melt that character instantly. It's that insanely hard. With his right click being up more often, with his block and his enhanced punches being up more often, he gets his ult more often, better for brawl, better for stall. He is in a really good spot. I feel like this is the best season Iron Fist has had since 2.5. This is the character, basically his resurgence, and you're going to see a lot of Iron Fist mains back up and running in high elo. That's for sure. Next up, Deadpool, DPS Deadpool. I think he is he mediocre or niche? I would say niche. Why is he niche? Well, if you're running dive, right, you're going to be able to run Spider-Man, Daredevil, Black Cat, Iron Fist, all of these characters above him, including Starlord and flank Psylocke, right? So he isn't that necessary. However, he does have really good burst. His ultimates can really chain well. So like he does have a good amount of potential. In that like maybe lower bracket of the elo, he can, create a lot of pressure, create a lot of kills, do really well. So yeah, he does have his spots. I would say this character definitely has some of his spots where he can actually work really well. But is he good? No. And another big issue, similarly to like previously with both heal pool and DPS pool, now that all the death pools are ranked, you can see that tank pool becoming weaker meant that heal pool is now stronger by default, because there's more of an incentive to pick heal pool now, because he's no longer the strongest Deadpool, right? Tank pool falling out of the meta meant he is no longer must pick, which means heal pool can now shine again, because you're not in scenarios where you're picking heal pool while leaving tank pool on the table and just losing that 1v1 matchup in the team comp building, right? Similarly now, as you can see, heal pool is back up, but DPS pool still cannot rise back into that level, because now you want to pick heal pool over either of the other Deadpools, right? He could be higher if, again, he gets some buffs and heal pool gets some like reductions in his meta presence, and then he can like shoot up even higher in the meta, right? So like that also like puts him down. So let's say you're running triple support, but you're not running heal pool. So you can actually run Deadpool there, but the enemy's triple support is just gonna, outclass you as a character. So like there is issues with Deadpool, because for example, heal pool can outsustain Deadpool's DPS pool's damage with another support and just kill him. So like the character isn't in the greatest of spots. I don't know if he needs more damage. Increasing his burst isn't the greatest. He doesn't have enough utility as a diver. That could be a way you can improve him in some way. But yeah. Next up, Hawkeye. Do not pick this character. He doesn't work in Brawl, because once you get to him, he's just gonna fold over and die. He doesn't have anything to like sustain inside of Brawl. Even though he does a lot of crit damage and what's his face? Devil Dinosaur has a huge head. you're still not gonna kill him quickly enough because your arrows need time to charge and shoot. So like he's not good there. Dinosaur has a big shield, so he's not good there. Dive, he's obviously one of the worst characters in dive, probably like the worst character to dive. He has the least amount of mobility and ability to counter the dive. Once a black cat is on you, you're just dead unless you hit a headshot because you're him, you know, or Captain America or Venom. You know, you're just not gonna do well on this character. Bucky. I think Bucky is strong. I think Bucky is strong because he works really well on Brawl. He does a lot of damage, and if he gets a pick, he can start rolling really well with the ultimate buffs. He can get his ultimate insanely fast into Devil Dinosaur. Hitting him with the splash damage, with the crits, incredibly strong. He isn't the greatest into Dino, though, mostly because his bubble can block the hook. He can't be displaced from the hook, so he can body block the hook. So there's like issues where like Bucky's full kit isn't really that utilized. He's just going to be shooting down main a lot and focusing on somebody else with the hooks. He isn't really good into dive with removal of the uppercut. He can't really peel that well, and he's basically just there to do damage, where other characters can do more damage. You know, speaking of more damage, we have Punisher, right? Punisher's big thing is the shotgun does a lot of damage. The team up with Devil Dinosaur is actually pretty decent for it. You just sit on top of a dinosaur and just like, keep shotgunning. You're going to be surviving. It's just a big turret. That is strong about him. His ultimate is also really good. It's a decent win con. However, he still has his own issues, you know. He's terrible into dive. He can just, you know, unless you're hitting shots with the headshot, with the shotgun, you're just going to get bursted and just kill quickly. His ultimate is also easily counterable with something like a Magneto or like a support ultimate. On a lot of maps, you can just kite it behind a corner because a lot of the characters in dive meta have really good mobility, so you can just like displace him or just like outpace him, sorry. So those are the big issues with Punisher. His issues are basically the same. However, he's stronger now because just like continuously shooting down main onto that dinosaur is really strong. However, it's not end all be all, right? Because you can just out pressure him. A Phoenix can do more damage consistently. Elsa's better at it. So like there's characters that both outclass him, both beat him in 1v1s, kind of counter him or soft counter him. And obviously, he doesn't really do well when he's overrun by multiple dive characters because if it's coordinated, he's just going to blow up and die. And in those scenarios, you want like 5 other characters instead of him on your DPS lineup. I've seen people say, just pick Moon Knight, you're going to counter Devil Dinosaur, right? But if I just pick Devil Dinosaur and one dive character, your Moon Knight is useless, right? People think that in lower elo, obviously, you just pick Moon Knight, you're going to win. You're going to win the fights. On paper, that sounds great. However, Moon Knight's damage doesn't come from bursts. It comes from people sitting on top of each other. And basically, all you're doing, if you're not getting those kills, right, with your Moon Knight spam down main and not creating a lot of space, only thing you're doing is helping do what Devil Dinosaur enables, which is hypercharging that support ult. Let's say you're continuously chopping down and shooting Dinosaur, doing your damage, while a Luna is just pocket healing him. All you're doing is just being a supercharging that battery the Dinosaur is for those support ults. And you're just going to lose the old cycles. And obviously, the character is terrible into dive. Any dive character diving this hero is just going to kill him. Solo Venom, solo Cap, solo Black Cat, solo Daredevil. Any solo dive falls over Moon Knight. If you multiply it, the character is just useless. And that's basically what you do. You basically pair Devil Dinosaur with a Captain America, one dive, one main DPS, triple support, and then Moon Knight basically just does nothing, you know? The character is not really that good. Next up, Hela. Do we put Hela in mediocre or niche? I'm going to put her in mediocre. She still is decent at that long-range shooting. However, there is really no reason to pick her when Luna Snow is open, when Phoenix is open, right? Luna can just get in, flank, do more damage quickly, and get out, have the sustain, and have an actually useful ultimate, and a lot more mobility. Phoenix just is infinitely better than Hela, right? Hela's big issue is that her ultimate is terrible. It's not a good win con because it's so easily countered. You shoot her, you can patty cake it, you can just hide behind cover. The ult dies really quickly. Like imagine you have a Luna, you pop one ultimate or Loki lamps or anything for the Hela ult. Luna can just destroy that ult on her own insanely fast because Luna does what, like 325 damage and 2 headshots, and she can continuously headshot Hela. She's a standing target with a decently big hitbox. It's just a bad ultimate. And then she is insanely mobile, which makes her terrible into dive, right? So even the argument of pick her because, the Namor team up, well, what does the Namor team up matter if you're just getting blown up instantly and Namor needs to shift out and also gets blown up instantly right afterwards? Like these characters, like same thing with Namor. These characters don't really counter dive. They're there to mark dive before it happens and soften them up, right? However, with how fast dive is and how easy it is for dive characters to just like blow up and bait your cooldowns with Venom and Captain America also being insanely strong in the meta, right? And these guys also losing any off-angle fight to now Starlord, there's just no reason to pick something like a Hela or a Namor, even for the team up. These characters are just not that good. However, can you pick them? Yes. Can you do value with them? Yes. Are they niche? I wouldn't say niche. I would say you can just like more sparingly just pick them, and they're gonna do some value. Especially if you're really cracked on Hela, you're gonna get value on her. However, there's no real reason to pick Hela. Just go Luna and flank. Go Luna and DPS regularly. Go Phoenix. Go Starlord. Go Psylocke. Go Elsa. There's just no real reason to pick Hela. Similarly with Namor, his main strength being marking the dive isn't as strong when there's a multi-dive. When there's dives with Ultron drones, whereas there's dive with Luna claps, or dive with Mantis heals, or dive with also a whole heal pool diving with them, or continuous Jeff heals. Like it's just not that powerful, not that strong. Next up, Torch. He got buffed recently, and then immediately the meta just doesn't suit him anymore. Devil Dinosaur can just beam him and just seed him out of the sky. Incredibly easy to kill him. His dive and flank potential isn't anywhere near as strong now because Starlord and Psylocke can easily just mark him, especially Starlord. You just fly him around, insta-kill the Torch, and just keep fighting. Torch's like big burst damage comes from using two or three of his firebolt thingies and then slamming down, right? Exploding that, and that is his main burst damage. Meanwhile, Starlord can just like shoot and you're dead, right? Same goes for Psylocke. Full combo. Maybe he dashes, maybe he slams. You can still catch him because of your range. And then obviously Phoenix can two-shot you. Luna can just like stun you and destroy you. Ultron can mark you easily and does better poke damage than you do. So there's a lot of characters that just make Torch basically unable to play the game. He doesn't do that much into Devil Dinosaur, aside from just building his ultimate. And obviously he doesn't have that much ability to protect his backline into dive or really supplement the dive because his damage is on a 20-second cooldown. If that dive bomb was maybe on a 10-second cooldown, or maybe had 2 charges over that like 20-second period, maybe we would have a decent discussion on the hero's viability in a dive meta. But as things sit now, his burst isn't that strong and requires setup. His burst is on a 20-second cooldown, and he's really easily countered by like half the roster. So that's the issue with Torch. Iron Man is in a similar spot. However, he is a brawl hero more so he doesn't really mind sitting down to the ground more so than Torch. He doesn't play for burst. He plays for continuous damage, and that beam can just do a lot of damage. However, again, Dinosaur beams you, you're going down. He beams you, you're just dying. But if you build a comp around him, give him the Ultron, maybe even the Mantis, keep the Dinosaur, maybe another tank as well there to supplement his damage, and he can actually do a decent number, right? And his ultimate can still counter support ults, even with all the shields in the game. And with Dinosaur in the game, he can build it relatively quickly, So there's decent spots for Iron Man. You can do well with this character, but yeah, he's niche. He's really niche. Now there's a lot of discussion about this hero, Magik. She has been consistently the best performing DPS in the game, while having a really, really high pick rate across basically all ranks until you hit one above all. And people are kind of confused as to why. I've been talking to a couple of really good Magik players over on EU. Shoutouts to Swords and ODST. They know who they are. These guys are top Magik players. Both of them hit one above all regularly. And basically, the big strength of Magik is her damage has one of the shortest time to kills out of any dive, right? She kills targets much quicker than both Daredevil and maybe even Black Cat. It's kind of close, right? Especially if you do the full charge out of somebody's view and you can just assassinate, especially 250 HP targets. So what happens in ranked is the character doesn't get marked as often as these other characters do, right? You're kind of on the lookout for both Daredevil and Black Cat, right? And these characters are usually banned quite a lot, right? So When a Magik sets up and dives and basically insta-kills your backline, it's mostly because she doesn't get marked as easily in ranked, right? So Magik players that know when to set up, when to go in, and execute that combo flawlessly at an angle are just going to get a lot of value. On top of that, her ultimate is relatively strong in the ability to just like one-shot somebody or a target or just cancel support ultimate, stuff like that, which can turn fights really well. It's a decent win con, more so than something like a Daredevil ultimate, which you can just support ult and fully counter it. Magik, you can't. So she's like a really good character for those dive DPS who get their main heroes banned often, to just like pick her up and just like do what they do even better, because you're usually not in a mirror matchup situation, and she is relatively easier to play than either of those characters. Daredevil needs more setup before diving and usually needs somebody to help him, whereas Magik, as I said, like her one-shot combo is quicker. And then Black Cat is much more mechanically demanding, much more resource demanding, much more game sense demanding than Magik. So this is why the character is consistently viewed as one of, I mean, not viewed, but like statistically, one of the highest winning characters with a relatively high pick rate. However, once you hit that really, really high elo, where some of those really strong characters, people want to play them, so they get through the ban phases, they just outpace Magik really hard, and her like win rate drops really well in One Above All, and her pick rate, because a lot of those heroes, a lot of those players, do kind of get gate capped in Eternity for that. Those who do make it to One Above All do kind of struggle because it's much easier to mark in One Above All. People do have higher awareness. When she is diving, it's much harder to execute a full combo because there's people who are regularly peeling and continuously doing so. So stuff like Black Cat and Daredevil, who are just on paper better than her, are going to start outpacing her over there, which is kind of what you do see statistically, even though we don't really have, the best like knowledge of the statistics. Magik is still, as I said, a decently strong character, and but she overall is mediocre. And like I said, I talked to some of the best Magics in the world that I know, who are One Above All in her. She doesn't really do well into Devil Dinosaur, right? He disables her exit with the primary fire. He can just outbrawl her. She doesn't really do well into dosage scenarios, and if he marks her and peels for her, she's just not gonna get any value. So that's an issue with Magik. However, as I said, like let's say we're making this tier list off of just win rate and like Celestial and lower, she would probably be in the pick her ban phase if you know how to play her, right? Because she's a really strong dive character. However, she's outclassed by all the other divers, and she's easy to mark. She's much easier to mark than these characters because she doesn't have the wall hacks that they do, and she doesn't have as good of an escape tool as Daredevil, who can just wall climb, grapple to the wall, has a block, or Black Cat, who can just ground the space, go invisible multiple times, also wall climb, have multiple dashes and stuff like that. So that would be like the overall consensus on Magik. Next up, Mr. Fantastic. The buffs are neat. However, the character, again, he excels in just being annoying and just kind of surviving. And there's characters that just do his job better. Against Dino and Emma, he's not going to be doing that as much. They are really good into countering Brawl, which he is. So, I don't know. He doesn't really fit the meta, right? But he has his opportunities to be annoying and kind of peel and, give overshield and, hit the divers who are moving quickly relatively well. But I don't know, there are some spots where you can make Mr. Fantastic work, but majority of the time you're just not going to get value on this hero. And that's fine. Like he has his little niche, which is, low elo, learning how to mark the dive and learning how to peel. That's kind of where he sits. His ultimate needs rework. He doesn't do enough damage there, and his fridge form is just kind of go big, do damage, but like doesn't do enough damage to like outpace any other stronger character. Next up, Wanda. Just don't pick this character. Like, I guess with the team up, she's kind of decent into Devil Dinosaur because of her pressure damage. But again, Phoenix is better, Elsa's better, Punisher's better, Moon Knight's better, Bucky's better, Wolverine's better. There's like 60 other characters that just do that job better. Her ultimate is really easy to counter. Dino can just shield his entire team. Dino can grab her out of it. Dino can ground her because she is in a flying state during that. Emma can grab her. Cap can shield block it. Ro can grab her. Luna can stun her and just kill her. Phoenix can kill her and stun her. There's so many things that just like counter this character's ultimate. Her damage is not that high. she's just, I don't know. It's Wanda. Buff her, please, I beg, and rework her. Spider-Man. Spider-Man does kind of struggle in this meta because Luna can just mark him and disable him completely. The triple support flop make it much harder for him to create any value. The Dinosaur can peel and he can't be moved, so he makes Spider-Man's job really difficult. If Spider-Man is mid combo and Dino just grabs you, you're just instantly dead. If Luna stuns you, you're instantly dead. Black Cat and Daredevil outclass you and all that. However, if Dinosaur is banned, I mean, and some of these DPS are banned, you can still get value by pulling people off the map. Your ultimate is much better now, so you can kill through support ultimates quicker if you combo with like Venom and Spidey. So he does have his niche and he does have his spots. However, he does require a lot of characters to actually be banned from the meta, and he is one of the weaker divers now because of it. Being 250 into Luna is just scary and not something you want to be without any ability to counteract or mitigate that. If Luna aims well, hits her freezes, you're just not going to be playing game on Spider-Man. A lot of high-level supports just pick Luna and just don't let Spider-Mans play the game. It's just how it works, and it is what it is. Squirrel Girl. Similarly to Wanda with the team up, Squirrel Girl has a little bit more use now because she can, continuously fire right dead damage at the big dino, and direct hits from Acorn do have a decent amount of burst, especially if you do something like Treetop Menace and like ricochet your nuts. You can hit like double shots or triple shots at the same time, like basically ricocheting and having like an arch, which basically makes those nuts hit at the same time. That amount of burst that quickly can actually do a lot of damage and be kind of surprising, right? So there is scenarios where she can kind of do some stuff now, as opposed to before. However, she can't hit shot, so she doesn't utilize that big head of his. Her CC is not the greatest. She's easily stunned. Her ultimate is not good. But I've been seeing some people smurfing and trying her out. She does have some potential viability. I don't think she's going to be that good overall. But like the amount of actual skill you need to aim that, to use every single one of her techs, to actually get the value, you're just not going to be that good at Squirrel Girl. And there's just no reason for you to pick her. Similarly goes for Widow, right? There's players who are really, really good at Widow. However, right, the Mantis damage boost got a nerf, which doesn't actually break point, right? But like burst healing and 275, you're still not going to be getting. You're going to be getting those picks less often. If you're running her as a solo DPS because you're kind of forcing Mantis to kind of get any value, she's not going to be good into any of these tanks. Like not a single tank on this list, aside from maybe Thor and Angela, you're just not fighting well into these tanks, especially not into dive tanks. She's also insanely susceptible to dive. She has one ability to counter one dive character, and then she just blows up, right? Her sustained damage up close is not good. Her long range sustained damage is bad. Even if you're the best Widow in the world, just don't pick this character. I don't think there's a single reason to pick this character. She's bottom two right there with Hawkeye. Like these two are the worst characters in the game. You probably shouldn't pick them ever. And there's a reason these two characters have like a 30% win rate. Similarly, why I was thinking of putting Cloak and Dagger in that rank, right? But like she's picked a lot, and she's like really decent in lower elo where you just don't need that much skill and you can just waste your cooldowns and survive longer, right? Storm. Similar to Johnny, another flyer, she doesn't suit the meta. She is incredibly mobile, and her damage boost being nerfed overall makes her damage overall output not as strong in order to like break those break points or break those chokeholds or break those 303s or 312s as before. Even in high elo and pro play, you're not seeing point stalls that much, and when you do see them, you're not seeing Storm using for that spawn hold break scenario, so the character is not that strong. Her ultimate is overall bad, easily countered by shields, by healing, by Phoenix Hold, by Psylocke Hold, by like bursting and shooting her, Patty Cake and stuff like that. Blade. I am kind of happy about Blade. I like his place kind of in the meta. The anti-heal is actually really good because you can actually pressure this dinosaur a little bit, right? He isn't that strong. He needs more damage. Just please give him more damage. Give my boy viability for one season. I beg of you, just give him more damage. Don't be afraid. He's going to break the meta. Let me ban him. But let me just see Blade's anti-heal actually create pressure while he's spinning and swinging his sword. Like, I beg you. The character actually has some niche because he can make the Devil Dinosaur anti-healed, and then your damage just like piles onto him and just gets the kill on him, right? His ultimate is a good combo overall. On its own, it's kind of bad, but with Groot, it's pretty decent. And he can just brawl these supports much longer, right? And like brawl these dive characters much longer. And if you're able to mark them at like a mid range, he's actually gonna outpressure them. He's really good into a lot of tanks. Like he's good into Hulk, good into Strange, good into Mag. So like we're seeing Blade getting close to being viable. I really hope they just give him those little buffs here and there, just like make him actually part of the meta, and so we can actually see some Blade play. That'd be great. And finally, Black Panther. Do not pick or doesn't suit the meta. I'm gonna actually put him niche. I think Black Panther has a couple of spots where you can run this character and actually get value on him. It's gonna be hard to actually like pull it off because there's so much stuff that counters him. But if you're running full dive, there's gonna be enough space and enough cooldowns used. And I'm gonna put him in. I don't know. Is he niche? Is he do not pick? That's the real question about this character, because there's moments where you can just pick him and get so much value. I've been seeing some really good Black Panther players get some really good clips, really good value, really good picks on the backline, because look, you're fighting into a Luna. You can burst a Luna relatively quickly on him, But if they're running triple, it's not that good. But he's also insanely strong into Loki, So let's say the enemy backline is running Loki Luna. You're like just free eating on that backline continuously. Even if Luna is really strong now, unless she's hitting you with the snowball, you're just gonna burst her down really quickly. She's not mobile enough to survive you, And you're moving so fast, it's genuinely hard to actually hit him. He's relatively easy to mark. There's a lot of tanks that counter him. I don't know. I'm going to leave him in niche. He can contest off angles well onto like a Phoenix or like even a Starlord. He can burst if he doesn't get the flip off. Psylocke as well. I think there's moments, and if you're a really good Black Panther that knows this character in and out, I think you're going to be getting value in this season due to the amount of prevalence on dive. That is overall. This is the finished tier list. This is how it looks. So to give you a little bit of a recap, the meta is basically twofold. One of the metas is when Devil Dinosaur is open, one when it's not, when he is not. When he isn't open, dive is just as prevalent as before, and a decent amount of characters are going to drop in value or move around. For example, Emma and Groot are going to drop down a little bit. If TeamUp is open, Rogue is going to go up. Overall, Thor might go up as well. There's other characters that are going to drop down, seemingly like the heavy poke characters like Bucky, like the Punisher, like the Moon Knight. They're going to drop maybe even lower. They're going to be more niche. And then the other meta is just your full dive meta, which is kind of what's going to be dominating the scene, as you're seeing a lot in MRC and Ignite. You're seeing a lot of the Cap, a lot of the Venom, a lot of the Daredevil, a lot of the Black Cat. This triple support is also really prominent because all of these characters are really good. They supplement each other really well, but it's really important to know when to match and what to match. And the final message I want to leave you with this video is, don't look at this tier list and think just because a character is in a certain tier, that means they're insanely strong or insanely weak. I need to pick them. I can't ever pick them, right? Aside from the bottom tier, I can see scenarios where you can pick any of these characters and make them work and win games. I personally am a huge fan of Thor, and I've still won games in high elo on Thor, right? In like the top 2% of the player base, right? I've seen Angela players, like HeavenRefining, for example, do really well on Angela still in high elo, right? So there's a niche moments where even these characters that don't suit this meta can work, right? I've seen Storm have certain like rushdown comps where you just break that like barrier really strong because the enemy has really low heals and you can just like outpace them on the full damage. Similarly, you don't need to pick every single one of these high elo character or highly ranked characters to win the games. As I said, I've seen a lot of Iron Fist, run the game, even though there's characters like Elsa who's better, like Phoenix who's better, like Starlord or Psylocke who's better. Right? So like these characters can still work. They can still do a lot of stuff, especially in lower elo. Like keep in mind, if you're looking at I don't know, like low celestial, GM, or anything below that, this tier list isn't really going to tell you what you must pick and what you can't pick, because a diamond level Starlord, unless he's smurfing or hacking, isn't going to be able to, fire off that clip and just do full damage, right? Meanwhile, a diamond level Iron Fist is probably still going to be able to, hold down left mouse button and track a character, right? It's going to be easier that way, right? So that character is going to be stronger, and then the other one is going to be a little bit weaker in your elo. Similarly, maybe the old combos aren't going to be coordinated as well, so Gambit isn't as prevalent in like Platinum or Diamond, so maybe he's not even, relevant to your meta. However, as I mentioned at the start of the video, meta defining and meta itself means most effective tactics available, right? So this is the playing field we have. These are the cards, these are the characters we are going to have in our deck and just like use them, right? So off of that, we're going to decide what is the most effective thing. If we are playing all of these characters at their absolute best, this is what is going to be the most effective. However, is most effective always going to win? Obviously not, right? There's counterplay to a lot of stuff. This game is basically like rock, paper, scissors. Like this stuff beats that stuff, right? Obviously, there's characters who do kind of go above that, like Devil Dinosaur, like everybody in meta defining. These characters kind of go above that. They don't really care about some stuff. You can just pick them at random if you're good at them and you're going to get value on them, right? And they're going to define how the rest of the lineup and rest of your team comp is going to be built. However, these characters are not must picks at every single level of play, because for example, as I said, like Plat, Diamond, these characters are not going to be meta defining. They're not going to be most effective tactics available because you're not going to be as good at them. They're not going to be as effective because you're not going to be playing around those strengths, right? Flank characters are usually weaker on lower elo because people don't know all the routes. They don't know how to properly get there or engage from there and stuff like that. So don't take this tier list or any tier list ever as gospel. The main important thing is the discussion we're having about the actual state of the game and the characters in the game. The actual placements on the tier list and even the naming scheme that I use on the left side, if you change some of the naming, you might have a completely different tier list, right? So just listen to the words that I'm saying and discuss that type of stuff and think about that stuff rather than just like taking anything of here as gospel. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time.